My name is Sophie. I suffered from fibromyalgia and extreme fatigue syndrome for about 24 years. Today I'm fully healthy. And now I would like to pass on everything I've learned about health and healing and more to support those who are still on a journey. And this is why I create this documentary series and podcast, The Puzzle of Healing.
Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of The Puzzle of Healing. This is kind of an add-on episode to the one I've done last time with Marco Leitzke. I know it's been a while. I've been super busy with so many things, but here it is, a new episode. Since I published the episode with Marco Leitzke, I've got loads and loads of questions about the nicotine patches, and my go-to answer was, sorry, I don't know. Go and have a look at the Twitter account where people actually keep looking at what people report about, how it's going, what they're doing, and so on and so forth. So I thought I'm reaching out to Troy, who's running the, I'm getting the word wrong again, citizen scientific project around the nicotine patches, to ask him how it's going, what he found, and where you can go if you want further input. So, as always, all the important links to that are in the description, and I hope that some of those burning questions I wasn't able to answer are answered in this video. Well, hi Troy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, hello. I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about the nicotine test. Anyone who wants to listen to it.
Yeah, I am so excited because since I talked to Marco about the nicotine test, I keep getting lots of comments and questions. And basically my standard answer is, have a look at this Twitter account because people there actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But before we talk about the nicotine test itself and all the findings that came since, do you want to talk a bit about yourself? Who are you? How did you get involved?
Okay. Well, I usually don't talk too much about myself because I don't find it too interesting. I'm just a normal long COVID patient who started with long COVID in March of 2020 and went through many of the trials and tribulations that pretty much anybody watching this video has gone through. At my worst point, I was probably at about 30% on the Bell scale, and that came probably after my second infection, which I ended up having to be in the hospital for a few days. But because of the post-viral cytokine storm that came after the infection, not the actual infection, which caused a lot of neurological damage, occipital area, and neck and everything. But eventually, after 2 years, I finally accepted the fact that I had long COVID and that I could, I had to attack everything differently. Because before I wanted to do everything 100% natural and I didn't want to take any medications. And I just wanted to, research my way out of it without using anything. But then I was looking for success videos on YouTube and found different success videos and then tried to research what made them successful and see how I could apply it to myself, which I think probably everybody everybody goes through that phase if they're well enough to be able to watch videos. And then after that second year, when I finally accepted that I had this serious disease that I needed to work to cure myself of, and I had to kind of go through the grieving process of grieving for my old self being dead, because even if I completely cure myself of all of my problems, there's no way I would be the same person I was after going through long COVID. I mean, you can't go through this for 4.5 years and then come out the same person on the other end. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people try. I've seen a few people with the nicotine test where they come onto the Facebook group and they post and they say, "Oh, great! The nicotine was the last thing I needed. I'm cured. fantastic. And then I say, okay, well, let's do an interview and you can tell your story. And many people just say, well, I don't want to think about long COVID anymore, and I just want to get on with my life, you know. So, but that's understandable.
Yeah.
I understand that because it's kind of a nightmare. So you can either kind of block it out and try to ignore it, or you can kind of like embrace it and be like, I'm going to learn from this traumatic experience. No?
Yeah.
So I'm the type of person who likes to research everything before I try anything. So I think the first thing I tried was B3, nicotinic acid
Hmm.
supplements, the ones that make your face go all red, even on a small dose. Um, and then from there, I kept experimenting with different things, but doing a lot of research before I started.
I think that's
When you're
definitely a
doing,
healthy attitude. I think that's something I always hope people who watch the videos I do, because I
Mhm,
talk about like introduce everything I can find that potentially could help with chronic illnesses,
mhm,
predominantly MECFS and long COVID. But I wish people would definitely always research further, because just watching a
yeah,
video, I think, is a starting point, but not which then
mhm.
should prompt you to kind of go and do it immediately. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
say
There's
you can't
people
come
get
out.
desperate.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And I don't know how much you know about me, but I was ill for 24 years. I had chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia.
Mhm,
Fibromyalgia was the first diagnosis, and fully gone now. So yes, of course, it does change a person. But
mhm.
my question now, do you think with a nicotine patch you can get fully rid of it? Can you fully recover physically, even though you change, obviously?
Uh, with that question, I would say no, because there is no magic cure. There's no one thing that's going to cure everybody. And something that I notice in all of these success videos is that people say that they did 100 different things to improve their diet. They improved their mental health. They did this and this and this and this and that. And then they found brain training,
Mm,
or they found some mold cure, and then that cured them. And that was the cure. That's the magic cure because they found that. But they're biased by whatever happened at the end. That last big piece of the puzzle is the piece that they want to talk about.
yeah,
Nope. So even when on Twitter, especially when I'm sharing some of the stories of people that are cured by the nicotine test, I always say that it's just part of the puzzle. It's not a cure in itself. There's no one magic pill. I mean,
mm,
even when you're talking to scientists, you you see that they're looking for that one magic pill. They're like, okay, I'm gonna find that magic pill, and it's gonna be in my specialty here in neurology or biochemistry or whatever. And they're looking for that one magic pill, and then they're gonna just flip that switch, and then everything's gonna be good. And I personally, I don't think that there is one magic pill. I think it requires an enormous amount of holistic work on every aspect, on the physical parts, sleep, diet, mental health, um, everything.
yeah.
I came up with this analogy of somebody that has a watch, and then they're sleeping with a watch, and then they wake up in the morning and their arm is like swollen,
Mhm.
and so they go to the hospital and they say, it was the watch that caused it. And so I'm going to take off the watch. And the doctor says, well, no, we have to take off the watch because otherwise we can't reduce the swelling. No, you're not going to have blood flow to your hand. And then after that, the the patient's like, okay, it was the watch, but the doctor says, no, we had to remove the watch because it was important for healing, but the root cause was something else. And I actually have like this analogy drawn on a little piece of paper in my office. And the
Yeah.
same thing happened to my partner. She's going through chemotherapy. and she had a blood clot in her arm because she has a catheter in the arm. And she woke up one morning and her arm started going blue.
Oh
And
dear.
she started hurting and it started swelling up. And she said, "Oh, it must be the watch." And I was like, "No, it's not the watch. It's it's your body attacking the catheter, and they'll give you heparin and then everything will be fine." And that's what happened. So I mean, she had to remove the watch at that time because it was
Yeah.
part of the healing process. So I think that that analogy for me is important because a lot of things like dealing with trauma or using brain training or benefiting from CBT and things like this, those tools are very useful for us to heal, but they're not the those are not the cause of what happened. They're just tools that we need to work with, you
I
know.
absolutely agree. I mean, that's
So
why I called my channel The Puzzle of Healing, for exactly that. Because as you said, I also found all the other puzzle pieces and then I found my last big puzzle piece. But I
yeah,
know that it was not that last big puzzle piece that cured it, it was all of them together.
yeah,
But if we
yeah,
now talk about the nicotine patches, because they do help, they are a big tool or can be a big
yeah,
tool.
yeah,
So when I talked to Marco, it had already shown quite significant effect to so many people and it was quite positive. And then I read that, I think on your Twitter channel, that there are some adverse effects, that some people don't react too well to the nicotine patches. And I had one or two people reaching out to me as well that it made them just feel worse.
yeah.
So I'm curious to hear, like, what have you found? Like, so maybe just briefly, how did this Twitter channel come about? And what's the journey with it and what have you
Sure.
found?
Well, it came out of my way of researching everything because I researched a lot of stuff, and I only went onto Twitter because it was a good way to be up to date with research and actually to have contact with a few researchers out there who are working on long COVID and MECFS. And there are different specialists out there that if you sent them an email, they would never answer you. Or if you wanted to get a meeting with them, it would take like 3 months or a year to get a meeting with these people. But if you answer them in Twitter, in like 5 minutes they answer you. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna use Twitter for that. And just ignore everything else on Twitter and
Mhm.
just focused on long COVID and MECFS. And through that I found Remission Biome and Tess Fowler. I was like trying to help with the research by sending in anything related to what they were doing. And then she put out a message saying, "Who wants to do uh, some citizen science? Who has a project they want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to research nicotine patches because it was starting to get popular on the internet." And I was very frustrated with the fact that patients in our world, they go onto Twitter and Facebook and they put up the message, "Has anybody tried blah, 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 whatever?" And then they get two answers. One person says, "Oh, I'm interested in that. I might try that." And somebody else answers and they say, "Oh, it helped me. It cured me." Or somebody else answers and says, "It made me feel worse." And that's the data they have on the research. That's based on that and their feelings. They decide to try something or not. And I was very frustrated with that. So I wanted to try to collect the data and collect the research and try to put it all into one place so that people can make informed decisions
Mhm.
about what they're doing. And they can see all the good sides and the bad sides, and then each person make their decision, especially since most doctors don't understand these diseases and they don't know how to treat it. And so patients, most people are just, when I tell them, please talk to your doctor about nicotine before you start, they usually just say, "Oh, well, I don't talk to my doctors anymore."
Yeah,
or
or if you do, like doctors don't know anything about it, and obviously doctors are hesitant to say, yes, this is a good idea if they don't know anything about it either. So I had that as well from people where they said, I tried, and my doctor just said, I don't know, I can't say anything about it, which to me is a
yeah,
better response than saying, don't do that. But
yeah,
it's of course tricky if you try and talk to your doctor, or then one case they looked at the study from Marco and said like, well, this is not real much data. It's just 4 people, whatever the sample
mhm,
size was. So they were like, how can I
yeah,
say anything based on that? And of course,
yeah,
from a medical point of view, this is right. They shouldn't start recommending things they don't know anything about, or there isn't enough science. But on the other hand, it's frustrating because people
yeah.
obviously want answers.
Yeah, so I started researching it for myself and then trying to collect as much research on nicotine and to understand the different theories of why it works, and the different benefits, the different risks. And also I went through the process of having to fight my personal traumas over nicotine because my parents always smoked and I've
Mm.
hated smoking my whole life. So I connected smoking with nicotine as if it was the same
Yeah.
thing, which was a big mistake. But eventually, after doing lots and lots of research and reading tons of papers and seeing the differences, then I realized that no, smoking has 7,000 components, and a lot of them are cause cancer and they're toxic and they work together to cause um, dopamine hits, which then lead to people wanting to smoke more, etc. But then nicotine by itself is not connected to cancer. It's been used for probably hundreds or thousands of years throughout history in different uh, cultures around the world, and and by itself, just nicotine by itself, given in low dose transdermal patches, is not addictive, which was a very important part
Yeah.
of my research because uh, I didn't want to be doing anything that would become addictive.
Yeah, of course.
There's also, I mean, there's a big difference between something being addictive and something being beneficial, and then you're not wanting to stop.
Mm.
So that's also another problem is that with these diseases, we try something like a vitamin B3, and then we feel better that first week when we try it. So we're like, okay, I'm gonna always take vitamin B3 because it helped me. But maybe you're only deficient in it, and then after a week, that was enough. And then maybe you only need it once a week after that, or maybe you do need it every day because genetically you're deficient always in that. So with nicotine, it's the same thing. If you There are a lot of people who start using the patch, and it helps them so much that they say, "I'm never going to stop." Oh,
Mm.
okay. They make that decision after a week of using the patch. So even before they could even possibly be addicted to it, they've already decided that it's so beneficial that they want to make it part of their daily routine.
And do we know what happens if you use them long term?
There's not really very much data on nicotine by itself,
Mm.
unfortunately, because all of the research is focused on around smoking,
Yeah.
and everybody knows that smoking is bad.
Yeah.
Nobody in the world will defend smoking.
Oh, that
Uh,
actually reminds me of one of the questions I got quite a few times. I mean, apart from that, my answer always is, I think it would be better if you quit smoking. But if you do smoke and you have long COVID, would it then
mhm.
still help to use the nicotine patches?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Actually, in the
Cool.
data, there's not very many smokers.
Mhm.
There's only, I think, maybe 5% of the data I have are from smokers. So it's not a very big part of the long COVID MECFS community.
Mm.
And at first, I thought that maybe that was important information, but then I looked up the data showing what percentage of people smoke by age, and when you get to past 40 or 45, the average smokers is 5%. or
Oh, wow,
something.
that's very low.
So it's the total amount of smokers, I think in places like Europe or America would be somewhere around 15 to 20% now. I'm not sure exactly where it is, actually, but when you get up to the age of most people who have long COVID or most people with MECFS, then it's usually middle-aged or older.
Mhm.
So there are not many smokers left at that age.
And now that we talk about your data, so what have you found since you started looking at it? Do you know in how many cases does it work? What dosage? How long do people need to apply it? What have you found?
Well, the exact data, I'm not allowed to share
Okay.
the exact data until it's published because I hate I hate the scientific publishing industry because I mean I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I'm a patient
Yeah.
that has turned to become a citizen scientist. So the whole academic publishing system and the secrecy behind things and everything, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But ever since the very beginning, I've tried to take the data that I have and then share whatever information is clear from that to
Mhm.
the people. And then last December for a long COVID meeting, and it was the International Long COVID Demystifying Long COVID Conference. It was in Madrid by chance.
Oh,
So since
nice.
I live in Madrid, I was able just to walk down the street and go to the conference.
Perfect.
So I presented a poster there with some of the data, some of the early data from the survey. So that data is available, showing that there's about 70% of the people respond, 20% say that they don't notice anything, and then there's about 5% that's feel that just made them feel worse.
And for
So
those
that's,
who have an adverse reaction, who feel worse, do they
Mhm.
usually, when they then stop, go back to their baseline? How do you have any data on that? Like, or does it make it worse and it stays worse?
I don't have any specific data on that because the our study is not longitudinal, it's just retrospective. But from talking to people, especially in the beginning, anybody that was getting worse, that I would be sending them messages and saying, how are you, and are you getting better or not, and everybody that I've contacted were able to get back to their baseline
Okay.
within a few weeks for the most part.
That's good
I'm
to know.
sure that there's some people it probably took them a couple months before they got back to their baseline.
Mhm.
But since I started the Facebook group and we have this big community of support and we have all the information with the FAQs and start making all the videos trying to explain the different problems, I I haven't found people who are getting worse per se
Amazing.
because I think that with the knowledge that we've gotten from the data and from just people talking to each other, we found the safest way to experiment with nicotine so that people don't crash.
And what is the
Um,
safest way?
so the safest way is to start at a very low dose. So at the beginning, people wanted to copy Dr. Litsky's original study and start at 7 milligrams because that's the smallest patch you can buy.
Mhm.
So they just said, okay, well, I'll just start with that. And then in the beginning, we started saying, no, we'll start with 3.5 milligrams and see how you respond because that's a lower dose and it's safer. So we tried to explain how to adjust the dose by just cutting off part of the backing of the patch and then putting it on and then adding in a band-aid or some tape or something so that it'll stay on. Um, and then after that, I lost my train of thought.
So I guess you start low and then at some point you increase the
Yeah.
dose, I assume.
Yeah, then you increase the dose slowly. The reaction at first, the first day, is like the strongest reaction you'll have to nicotine will be the first day. And then the first week is usually you just need to be finding how your body adapts to it or not. And if the dose is too high, then lower the dose.
Mm-hmm.
If the dose is too low and you don't notice anything, then increase the dose. And just do it gradually by like 1 milligram at a time. There are some people who are really, really sensitive and very worried about what nicotine will do to them. So they buy a patch and then they just take less than 1 milligram and they put it on for 2 hours and then they see what happens. And then the
Can you
next day
Sorry, I
they,
just have a question about that with the 1 milligram. Because I
yeah,
remember when I talked to Marco, he said do not cut it because if you cut it, you change the amount of nicotine. Does that still stand, or can you cut pieces of the patch now, or do you need to just cover up the ones that you don't want on your skin?
yeah. Well, this is one of the biggest um, problems or doubts in the beginning
Hmm.
because the nicotine patches, none of them say, "Oh, just cut the patch." None of them say that. They all say, "Don't cut the patch."
Hmm.
And
Okay.
then, like me, I'm not an expert, so I would never say to people, "Okay, you can just cut the patches," because if they cut the patch and it doesn't work, then that would be like I would be liable for that, I guess, which I'm not an expert to be able to say anything about that. And all of the research I've done, um, I haven't found anything where there was anything clear other than to say that if it's a reservoir patch, which is a type of patch that has like a reservoir in the back with a lot more nicotine than it's actually delivered,
Mhm.
then those patches you definitely do not cut.
Okay.
And I would actually personally suggest not using reservoir patches at all
Mhm.
because they're designed for smokers to quit smoking. Because the reservoir patches are just the more expensive and the big name brand patches. There's a lot of design going into them to deliver a high dose of nicotine very quickly to satisfy the smoker because that's what they're used to.
Yeah.
And then after that, it gives more a continual dose and tapers off. But with the cheaper patches that you can buy, the store brand patches, um, the ones you can buy on Amazon, on Walmart or Walgreens or whatever place, whatever country you're in, will be different brands. Those are usually the better ones for us
Perfect.
because because they're usually matrix patches. They're usually very thin. And a lot of people, they didn't like cutting off just a small part of the backing and then sticking it on and then having to put on another piece of tape. It was too much trouble for them. So they just started cutting those matrix patches and putting it on and testing that among themselves to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And so they started sharing, the different patients started sharing amongst themselves. Oh, I cut this one and nothing happened. Oh, I cut this one and nothing happened. And then some people were like, oh, I cut this one and then I got really, really sick and went to the emergency room. So don't cut this one. And so people just started experimenting on themselves. But I understand that people would want to do that out of convenience
Mhm.
because it's just more convenient that way. But um, they don't have to do it. But in
Yeah.
the end, I think most people they'll end up gravitating towards using the different brands that are the cheaper brands that people they see other people using, and and then they'll end up starting cutting them out of just being lazy.
Fair. And
And
what
then,
do you
but
do
I
this?
have no idea if that will affect um like the exact dose you're getting.
Yeah.
Like maybe if you're cutting it, then maybe one day you think you're getting 5 milligrams, but you're getting four. And the other day you're getting eight. I don't know. I
Mhm.
have no idea. It would take a lot of research.
So it would be better not to be lazy and to just cover up the part you don't want to stick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just cut the backing and then just cut the backing and then put on another thing. That would be the safest way.
Mhm.
But
And did
I've
you?
noticed that very few people. like to do it that way.
And so I had a few people who had a really strong reaction to the adhesive of the plasters and got skin rashes. Do you have any
Yeah.
tip for that?
Yeah. Well, for that, it seems to affect about 10%
Oh,
of the
okay.
people. They seem to have some type of reaction to the adhesives. Some people say that it's not the adhesive, that they're reacting to the nicotine, which I, I mean, I'm not an expert, so I don't know, but I don't think it would be the nicotine they're reacting to. I think it would be the adhesives that are in the patch.
Mhm.
So in the FAQ files on our link tree, there's an FAQ document. I have two sections with a list of ideas that people can use to try to solve the problem. And when people on Facebook post their little tricks they've done to get past that problem, then I try to add that to the FAQ so that people have a list of 20 different things they can do. But the main thing is to try a different patch because each patch uses different adhesives, and then to to apply it to a different part of the skin that maybe gets more sun, gets more or friction, more contact. So that part of the skin might be more less, um,
Bit more robust.
yeah, more robust. So part of your skin might be worse off than others. My partner had really bad reaction to the adhesives after a surgery, and the surgery was on a delicate area of the body when there's no sunlight. So she had a horrible reaction and had huge blisters and infections and everything, just from uh, an adhesive that was used in a hospital that was supposedly hypoallergenic or whatever. So I know what it's like to have
Yeah.
adhesive problems. It's horrible. So the other things are there's different people. Some people will take some like antihistamines, or maybe they'll stop taking some antihistamines to see if those antihistamines are causing problems, or they will apply some type of treatment to the skin, like an hour before they apply the patch.
Mhm.
That's another thing they do. Another thing is to make sure to patch in different skin areas every time. So, like maybe on one part of your bicep one day, another bicep another day, then maybe on your back another day, and then somewhere like up on your right chest another day, and just change the spots a lot so that it's not getting constant adhesive to that
Yeah.
area of the skin. Cleaning off the adhesive with alcohol after you remove a patch
That's a good one.
helps maybe so that that skin is not being attacked so much. Um, there are so there's tons of different little tricks. One
Like, I
one
will definitely
person,
make sure to put a link to all your resources because it's
yeah,
amazing what you're all collecting. It is just so,
yeah.
so good.
Even once one person was desperate and they really benefited from nicotine, but it really caused horrible welts all over the body, and they kept changing the spot, so they just had these like welts all over their body, and so they eventually researching it, they figured out that like the palms of the hands and the bottom of the feet, at the bottom of the feet, there's not so many MCAS receptors or whatever. So they put the patch on the bottom of their feet and they were fine. Then
Oh,
they could wear the patch. It's like,
amazing.
okay, great. So
I
it's just amazing. Like there's probably like 100 different solutions, and each person is
yeah.
going to be different. And there's some people who just eventually give up and say, no, the adhesive problem is too much, and they're not going to use the patch. And they tried 20 different things and it didn't work, and they just eventually give up.
Yeah.
And some of those people then try like using lozenges, which which increases the risk of addiction.
What's the average time you found before people feel if the nicotine patches have any benefit for them? Is there an average
It's,
time? Mm.
there's not one average time. Unfortunately, everybody's different.
Mm.
My personal opinion is that in long COVID and MECFS, there are different subgroups. There's probably between 4 and 6 subgroups of types of disease, which
Mhm.
is probably one reason why nobody can find a biomarker that works because each person's disease is slightly different, and there's probably a lot of overlapping subgroups as well. So if you're in subgroup number one, you might be partially in subgroup number three, and also 4 and 6 or something. I don't know. So
So
that's
what are
so
the
that
groups in your opinion?
well, I don't know. I haven't completely like written out all the groups and everything, but basically there are some people who have more. Well, there's some people that do the nicotine test just for one symptom, that they have one lingering symptom, and they wouldn't be like an MECFS type of long COVID patient. They just have maybe a loss of smell or taste, or one neurological symptom that they're dealing with, or just maybe just brain fog or something. So that's like one group is just people just have like that one lingering symptom, but otherwise their life is more or less normal.
Mm.
But then there are people there's one person who lost their smell and taste for, like 3 or 4 years before they found nicotine. And then they started using the nicotine, they got their smell back, and they were like, wow, this is so life-changing, because it was really traumatizing for them to
Yeah.
not have the smell and taste. I think each thing affects people differently.
Mm.
When I've lost smell and taste, it hasn't really bothered me as much. Uh, but I think for some people it's maybe is more traumatic for them. So each
Mm.
person is different. And then there's different types of more MACFS type of long COVID, where I think that there are some people in long COVID who are more similar to another person who has MACFS than to another person with long COVID in some ways. Because if they're in the same subgroup, then they're going to have more similarities. So, for example, one of the biggest subgroups is neurological, which is one of the main problems that I've had is neurological issues, which can be so diverse. And then those neurological issues, the most common ones would be like brain fog, or having, problems with memory, etc., or spatial memory, or whatever. But those neurological problems then can cause problems downstream,
Mhm.
which is one thing that I saw with the nicotine, is that when I started using the patch, it helped with some things which I expected it to help with. And then some other things I was like, oh wow, it's helped with that. But I wasn't expecting it, because there's no easy way for somebody to see if you have uh, some pain or some issue that's actually caused by a problem in that area,
Mhm.
or if it's being caused by neurological damage, that the brain is just got this, they're stuck in that loop of chronic issues.
Yeah.
So the neurological one is one of the more, I think it's one of the more common ones, and one of the more complex ones, because it overlaps with so many other
Mhm.
individual things. And then there are people who have specific damage to one organ or another. There are people who have heart issues, or lung issues, or kidney issues, or liver issues, etc. After COVID, and then so they have more physical damage to one organ than
Yeah.
another. So that changes everything as well.
And I would assume that the nicotine is probably less helpful in that case if it's actual damage, or am I wrong with that?
Well, I think it's helpful for almost everybody. Now it's I think it's more or less 80% of the people benefit from it. And the people that say they don't benefit, most of them I think they just gave up too early.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
would you say if it's not immediately helping or making it worse, is it
Mhm.
worth it to just keep going and maybe, as you said, lower the
Yeah.
dose a little bit or up the dose a little bit, depending on. So how
Yeah.
long do you think it makes sense to give it a shot before you should say, okay, it's really not
Yeah.
helping?
I tell people 6 to 8 weeks
Okay, that's quite time.
to at least give it 6 to 8 weeks before giving up. And then after they stop, after if they do it for 8 weeks, for example, and they say, well, I didn't notice any benefit. After they stop it, to transition down slowly so that it's not a shock to the body.
Mhm.
And then when you've tapered off, then wait 3 more weeks before deciding if it helped or not. Because we've had people come onto the Facebook group and say, well, I tried it for 2 months or 3 months and I didn't notice anything. So I'm stopping the nicotine patch. And then they come back 2 or 3 weeks later and they say, I feel surprisingly better, or I'm cured, or whatever, because it's like a kind of there's like a rebound
Yeah.
after stopping it because the nicotine was doing something to heal. It would be fantastic to have like biomarkers to see exactly what is happening to these people and like how long do they need to take it? Would 2 weeks be enough, or is a month enough? And each person is probably going to be different. So
Yeah.
until there are individual biomarkers that work for each subset of people, then people just have to go by feeling, and then they just have to try it for X amount of time. And then there's the other subgroups of long COVID and MECFS. I think that like the herpes virus reactivation is a pretty
Mm.
important subgroup as well. And I don't know how they react to nicotine because the data is not clear.
Oh,
Because some
interesting.
people seem to react worse or not. And I think if there are herpes reactivation issues, then my guess is that that nicotine might help, but then they also need to work on the immune system
Yeah.
uh, issues as well. Because
I guess
nicotine
that
is
comes back to
an
what you
immune
said at the beginning.
modulator.
Yeah,
Sorry, what?
it comes back to what you said earlier. It's not a silver bullet. It's you need
Yeah,
to work on all the other things as well. There's no point in just
yeah.
trying to find this one thing, I guess.
Yeah, nicotine is an immune modulator, so it helps with some immune issues. But I personally believe, it's just my personal opinion, that people need to be taking vitamin D daily and getting outdoor sunlight daily, um, uh, because I think that's part of the problem is that the immune systems of most people in the developed world is deficient of vitamin D
Mm.
from lack of diet and lack of sunlight, etc. Um, because if you there are a lot of studies in the beginning of COVID that showed that anybody who had a vitamin D level above 50, I don't remember which of the two systems it was being measured on, because there's two ways to measure vitamin D. But anybody who had above 50, uh, they were guaranteed not to die of COVID,
Yeah, I
which is
remember
which
reading
is also connected to the age, because as you get older, your vitamin D levels naturally go down. So there's the chicken and egg
yeah,
issue. So so I think that for anybody who has those types of issues, they need to work on that.
yeah.
Improving their immune system resilience, zinc or copper or whatever. I don't know. I have no idea what to do. I know what I do, but I have no idea what other people need to do to improve their immune system. There are probably a lot of better people to suggest what to do for that.
And as you
And
said,
then
it's probably
for
very individual.
and then digestive issues is another kind of subgroup which is very important. And I've been collaborating with Renegade Research and the Remission Biome, because right now I'm on my own, so they help me with advice and suggesting, oh, do this or don't do that. And Remission Biome, they're doing a study with 50 people right now. They have 50 people who with MECFS who are going to be taking antibiotics. I don't know how many have actually gone through the whole process yet, but they're doing a lot of testing on a lot of different biomarkers and then trying to figure out which biomarkers work, and then if the hypothesis of using antibiotics is beneficial or not, and who is it beneficial for, and when to do it, and etc. So that's also very the whole digestive system issue is also very important. Even one person in the nicotine group who benefited from nicotine said that they started taking antibiotics last week and they're feeling fantastic.
Oh,
So maybe they just found the right antibiotic at the right time. After they also do a lot of work on their gut, by doing biome site testing of their gut health and taking different probiotics and prebiotics and diet and exercise or whatever needed.
fascinating.
So the digestive part is really, really important. And my first big leap in benefit of getting better was actually from antibiotics. I had diverticulitis, which was probably caught diverticulitis.
Well, what is that? I've never heard that one.
It's actually very common. It's when you're like the large intestine will get these kind of pockets that form outside of the large intestine, and then in the pockets, the bacteria will get stuck there, and then make you sick. So you get like an infection. It's kind of like appendicitis.
Okay,
But it's not the appendix. It's just little pockets that people form in their large intestine. So I had that, and I took 2 strong antibiotics for that. But also at the same time, I decided to do a fast. So I was fasting for 9 days while on antibiotics. And so while I was antibiotics and fasting, I felt much better. And I finished that whole process, like going from 40% to 60% in my baseline level with that. So I'm not sure if it's just the antibiotics or just the fasting or both. Who knows?
So where are you now?
Now I'm at like about 90%, I would say.
Amazing. Well done.
Yeah. So the nicotine for me was a big help. I was a super responder. Like some people respond really well, like from day one, they respond to nicotine really well. So I responded pretty well from the beginning. I didn't have too many side effects, maybe a bit of nausea the first week. The first few weeks, I couldn't wear the patch at night because it affected my sleep. But now it doesn't affect my sleep anymore. And after that, I've had like sometimes where like I felt that it made me sleepy because the nicotine is it's a stimulant of the parasympathetic system. So like one of the biggest problems is the autonomic nervous system balance, the parasympathetic and sympathetic. And for me, I had the sympathetic system, which was just going crazy. So having the parasympathetic stimulant helps to kind of balance out the system. So, but sometimes, like when I was getting used to the nicotine at first, I went through a period of just feeling like really sleepy, which is very different from not long COVID fatigue, but not even normal tiredness. It was just sleepy, and I would have to like get up and do some jumping jacks or like pump some weights or something to like wake myself up, which was really strange because when you're a spoonie, you're like, no, I can't move.
Yeah.
But I physically move to wake myself up to keep working.
Wow.
It was a strange experience.
And
So
so that just changed over time again, or did you change
yeah,
things?
yeah. Eventually, the body eventually adapts. But I think, when we're sick, our whole body is not balanced.
Yeah.
So the body needs to find balance. Even if you find something that helps the balance, it might push it too far in the other direction because your body's already compensating.
Yeah.
So that's why my theory of why about 25 or 30% of the people that use nicotine patches have remission events is because um, they, when they start taking the nicotine, it's solving a huge problem that the body's been compensating for.
Yeah.
So there's not enough acetylcholine or not enough dopamine, not enough serotonin, whatever. And so the body's compensating just to get by. And then all of a sudden you remove the problem, but the body's still compensating.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you have like this huge rush of energy and dopamine and just feeling fantastic because your body is not used to it. And then after 3 hours or a day or 2 days, your body says, "Oh wait, I don't need to overcompensate here," and then adjusts, and then it finds the new balance with the help of that treatment. So,
So to sum it up,
mm,
you've got an incredible amount of research on your Twitter account, on your
yeah,
Facebook account. There is
yeah,
loads and loads of people who help input what helps them. There's different
mm,
steps you can take for different adverse reactions, like to the adhesive. It's worth it. Keep going for 6 to 8 weeks before you give
yeah,
up. And you might be responding super quick, or it might take longer. Everyone's different. And the most important thing, nicotine is maybe just one puzzle piece of the whole image. So it's
yeah,
worth it trying to find the other ones you need.
yeah.
Before we wrap up this episode, is there anything you haven't said you think is super important you would like to share?
Well, I would just say that if you're afraid of speaking to your doctor, even if your doctor doesn't agree with you about using nicotine, there's usually no harm in asking your doctor if they find some serious issue. I asked my doctor when I started, and she started looking on the internet and said, "Whoa, nicotine can cause this and this and this and this." And then eventually she said, "Ah, screw it. I have no idea. I think it'll be fine." Because because
Yeah.
there wasn't anything serious for me to try nicotine. So even if the doctor's against it, they should be able to help you. I mean, if you went to your doctor and say, "I'm using cocaine, uh, but help me with these problems," they're not going to say, "I'm not going to help you." Even if they know that using cocaine or smoking or whatever is bad for you, they still should be able to at least give you some advice to help you and to keep you safe. So that's important. And then before you start, watch the videos I've done on YouTube.
We will link them
Low,
all in the
they're
description.
low quality productions, but there's a lot of useful information there. And then to join the Facebook group to get support for all of, because we're so different.
Yeah.
Going to a Facebook group when there's more than 12,000 people in the group, and there's I don't know how many thousands of posts and comments each week. So that's like you can search the Facebook group. So you can go in there and just kind of search the Facebook group for whatever keyword and
Mhm.
say, "Oh, this medication or this symptom or this whatever." And you'll find posts from people over the past year that have had those same strange little symptoms you've had, or that whatever special medication you're using, and you'll be able to get feedback from at least a few people that have tried nicotine. And like a lot of people ask about, can we do LDN and nicotine at the same time? And it appears that most people have no problem as long as they're just doing one thing at a time. Don't start LD and nicotine patches the same day. No. Make sure you know how one thing affects you
Yeah,
before starting the other thing,
that is
because
a very good advice.
yeah,
All right, amazing. Thank you so, so much for your time, and thank you so much for all your work. It is life-changing for so, so many people, and it's beautiful to see. So thank you
yeah,
very much.
it is nice. Well, thanks for your channel. You have such a bubbly, positive personality. It's very addictive.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. I hope you find further courage to try it out if you feel like this is right for you. As always, please do your own research. Don't just watch this video and think like, yes, I'll try it. It is important that you know what you're getting yourself into. And as Troy at the end also said, speak to your doctor. Even if they might not be helpful, they should still support you. And hopefully by now they are more aware of the science or the testing that's going on, because it's, of course, there's still no full clear data, as Troy also talked about. So hopefully this was useful, and see you all next time.